have mentioned already several times, we are in Parashat Terumah. Terumah is one of the parshiot that tells us the blueprints for creating the Mishkan, the tabernacle. So we join the story this week with the outline of exactly all of the different pieces that make up the Mishkan. But tonight, we're going to look at that green circle, the Aron, also known as the Ark. So, this is my very limited graphic design experience that brings us, through inserting shapes into Google Slides, the description or the realization of the description of chapter 25 of Exodus, verses 10 through 17. And it gets us with the little, the rings and the poles and the box and the cover and the measurements. And so verses 10 through 17 get us to this point. Then we get to the instructions of 18. Make 2 cherubim of gold. Make them hammered work at the 2 ends of the cover. Cherubim. What do you imagine when you hear cherubim? Angels. I saw this. I don't know. Sphinxes. Angels, sphinxes. Babies. Yeah, right? I see lots of head nods. We agree that that is definitely something that comes to mind. Any other? So the answer is yes, yes, and yes. There is no singular understanding of what a cherub or cherubim, keruv in Hebrew, would look like. In our verses tonight, Rashi tells us that they had the form of a child's face, which has also been Christianized a bit when we think of Cupid, when we think of Valentine's Day. Those kinds of images come to mind. Ibn Ezra describes the cherub as a beast that had 4 faces, which one was an ox, not quite a sphinx, but in that direction perhaps. And Chizkuni describes a cherub having outstretched wings, certainly describing a type of bird. So we have 3 maybe related, but definitely different images, all based in this one verse. And that's only this mention of cherubim in Torah, because in Genesis chapter 3, we read at the end of, the story of Garden of Eden, that stationed at the end of edge of the garden were the cherubim, but they had fiery swords, and they guarded the way. And Chizkuni, the same commentator, talks about these as frightening beings that truly scared the people who might enter. And Rashi, who before was talking about a child's face, is now talking about angels of destruction. So not only in one place do we have multiple images, but we also have multiple locations that have even more images of what the cherubim might look like. The scholar from Bar Ilan University, Ra'anan Eichler, summarizes with pictures the various options, all grounded in Jewish text, or biblical text, I should say. We have a winged child, a winged adult, a bird, a human-headed bird, a winged bovine, a griffin, or a winged sphinx. We did pretty well as a group getting a whole bunch of those, and each of these are from different times representing very much different versions of what what cherubim might look like. So if we go back to our image, we are told to make 2 cherubim of gold, to make them hammered work at the 2 ends of the cover. So in your mind, you can picture whichever version we just looked at in those white boxes. We know that there are 2 of them. And we know that they have to be made out of 1 piece. Why do you think 2 cherubim, might be required to be made out of 1 piece? Adam and Eve. Ooh, I love that. So they don't break, I heard. They're both made of 1 piece. Yep. Certainly hammered out in a way. Same grain, same molecules. One God. Yeah, so in some religions, right, the cherub or the cherubim is actually an image of God. And we know that's not the case for the Israelites. We do not believe in God represented in a statue form. And so having two, one explanation that there are two and they're made out of the same is to symbolize one God, that these are not meant to be representations of that God. Very much, it's only one. Any other? So we have cherubim of some sort. We're told to cover the ark, we drop first we, maybe not drop, I suppose we place gently with respect the ark, the pact, meaning the tablets, Torah, if you will, into it, and then we cover it again. Now, some of these images might look a little familiar as ways that these cherubim have been represented in the past, but the piece that I want us to look at in these are that these cherubim shall have their wings spread out above, so that imagery of Sukkot Shalom that we sang in Hashkivenu, shielding the cover, and their faces one to his brother, Ish el Achiv, toward the cover they will be turned. Why toward each other? Well, what happens is God says, that is where I will meet you and I will impart to you from above the cover, from between the cherubim that are on top of the Ark of the Pact, that I will command you concerning the Israelite people. So God's talking to Moses. God is saying, that is the place where I'm going to come to you. Why does that matter? Between the lines. Yeah. Sacred bedposts? Headphones. Sacred headphones. Oh, yeah, kind of. The place where God exists, where God is present, where God comes to deliver the arguably most important message that God has for the Israelites, is when there are two creatures, whatever they might be, face to face. It's impossible to be face to face with another person and not see their humanity. It's impossible to sit face to face with someone and not appreciate something special. I would experience that potential as God. Our Torah will tell us that there is something about that presence. I'm going to offer words from Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt about this space between. Torah teaches that God spoke from within the empty space between the two cherubim. Talmud teaches they faced each other when we follow them. Talmud teaches that the cherubim faced each other when we followed the mitzvot, and that they turned away from each other when we did not. And then, when we bring that together, whether or not we hear the voice of God is up to us. Whether or not we receive the continuing revelation is up to us. We can choose to act in ways which create the space within which that voice speaks, or we can choose to act in ways that will negate that possibility. The voice of the infinite issued forth not from the golden statues themselves, not even from the holy text that was in the ark, but from the dynamic space between the cherubim. God speaks to us from emptiness, but not just any emptiness. God speaks from the spiritually charged space of relationship. When we face each other, when we welcome in the divine presence between us. Va'asuli mikdash. That's what we set out to do, to create a sanctuary. And why? God tells us, Vishochanti bitocham, so that God may dwell among us. Not in that sanctuary, but among us. Make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them.